to another edition of RPMbassy. So again, this is going to be kind of like a new kind of episode that I want to do because as a DJ through the years, I've got some, my favorite record labels. So this is going to be the first incarnation of almost like a label showcase, and there's many, and we all know there's going to be a Gigolo one at some point. But the one I've started off with, and again, I apologise, I've got loads of information about this label because I just don't like just talking about the records. I like a bit of information about the label itself and who's behind it. So the label I'm going to be talking about today, and I've got quite a few of their records, and I absolutely love this label. So the labels I'm going to talk about are labels that I play a lot of the stuff from. I collect all the releases on there, and I'm sure we've got all our favourite record labels out there. So if you are watching this episode, let me know what your favourite record label is, and if it's one of mine and I've got the records, I'll do a little showcase on it as well. So I'll be intrigued to see what your favourite record labels are. A lot of the labels coming out now, they don't seem to have that. If you think of the other labels, you've got Gigolo Records, you had Ed Banger Records, you've got, you're buying into the kind of a whole label kind of lifestyle, and they would have their gang as such, so their artist roster. They had their logo, they had this, whenever you've seen a record by a certain label, right, yeah, that's, this particular label, that's their style, this is their gang. So you bought the record, you're listening to it, it had its sound, you'll be playing that record. So that's the kind of labels I'm talking about. And it's kind of missing now. I see there's a lot of labels coming up, but they don't really have that kind of identity as a lot of the labels, especially from like the 90s and the 2000s, early 2000s. They had their own identity. And this is one of the reasons why I want to do this kind of label showcase. Because a lot of these labels I'm going to talk about had a really strong identity when it comes to sound, look, even how they dress. And we look at the Ed Banger label, I knew by looking at someone, those guys are into Ed Banger and that sound, that French sound. So my first label that I'm going to choose, also the guy whose label this is one of my idols, one of the greatest dance music producers ever, one of the greatest producers ever, and I absolutely love everything they've ever done. And I will be doing a future show on the main band. But the label I've chose is Roulé Records, which in French means rolled, hence the wheel. Now this label was founded in 1995 by Daft Punk's member Thomas Bangalter. Again, he's an absolute hero, so I will be doing future shows on Daft Punk because I've got so many of their records and so much to talk about. Roulé also had a side label called Scratchy, which we're going to talk about now, and a really good release on the Buffalo Bunch. But it only released one record. Why, I don't know. So at the very beginning, the first release on this label, and I do have most of them, and I'm just going to go through them all. So from about 95 to 98, there was just this array of like great records come out really, because that particular sound at the time was that French kind of filtered disco, that loop disco sound. If you think about the Homework and Discovery, those two albums of Daft Punk were the sound then, and every record on this label was just like spot on, and you can see by the state of some of my covers that they were like smashed in my DJ sets, played all the time. I think some of these releases now on this label are quite collectible. Which ones I don't know, but I know people were trying to buy my original copy of Music Sounds Better With You, because I know it's been released over the years, but the original kind of Roulé release people are kind of looking for, and anything to do with Daft Punk people go crazy for. But the first release, and what's really bizarre about this, I've got the discography here. Instead of starting on like 001, he started on 301, so that's the first release on this label, and it's Thomas Bangalter presents Tracks on the Rocks. This was just insane. Like every track on here, I just absolutely love. But my favourite track on here was Ventura and Outrun, were the two tracks that I used to play a lot. Again, it's got that looped. All of them. I'm not even going to talk about the tracks because all of them had that particular sound, that big 909 kick, the loop disco. Some of them kind of really obscure kind of noises, scratches, and things like that. And they were just great to mix, and they all sounded incredible over like the club systems. But that was the first release, and when this came out, we just went crazy over this when it first came out. But when the next one came out, when it was like, okay, so this label's doing something, this is not just a one-off. We didn't realise at the time, like Roulé was Thomas's label. So once the second release came out, it was great, Spinal Scratch, and that would have been release number 302, which is actually number 2. And again, what I liked about the simplicity with the label, again, you had the identity. Every sleeve is exactly the same. The only difference was a sticker at the top. And again, this was incredible. I mean, he was on fire at the time, man. The one I used to play a lot was the Spinal Beats, because it was just a beat-driven track. And it was great for like coming out of really busy tracks, sometimes that were quite hard to mix out of, to give you that kind of bridge, and then you can start bringing something else in. But it's a great kind of drum track, even just mixing over the top, doing long mixes over the top, because it doesn't do anything unpredictable. You know, it's just straight beats, really good beats, amazing drum programming, sounds incredible, great for mixing with other tracks, great for bridging between tracks, but that's the one I always used to play on here. Outstanding. The next one, number 303, and I'm a massive fan of this artist as well. I bought lots of his records, and that's Alan Braxey. So the next release was Alan Braxey's Vertigo. I bought this in Virgin for £7.49. I think this was classed as an import, actually. I think because it was a French label, I think it was classed as an import, so £7.49. Even back then, it was quite expensive for a 12-inch. But that was Alan Braxey's Vertigo. And the Vertigo, the original track on this, I wasn't that big of a fan. I thought it's just a bit too noodly. But the edit on the B-side by Thomas was perfect, because stripped out a lot of the instrumentation, kind of brought the drums kind of forward. The arrangement was a lot more kind of together. So I was a big fan of the edit, Thomas's edit. And that's Alan Braxey, Vertigo. We all know who he is. You know about the French disco sound. This is it. He was one of the main artists in here as well. I think he kind of worked with Thomas on a couple of tracks. I'm not quite sure, but I'll have a look at my notes and we'll find out. The next one was Roy Davis Jr., Rock Shock. Now, I was a big fan of this. And then same thing again. The record itself, the original mix, I never used to play that, but again on the B side, you had Roy Davis Jr., Rock Shock, and it was a Thomas Bangalter's Stop Start mix, which is outstanding. If you've not heard that mix, it's incredible. Once he sprinkles his magic over it, it just so comes alive. The original, again, it's a great track, but it wasn't something I could really play in my set. It wasn't something I really kind of went, oh, that's an amazing track, made your hair stand on the back of your neck, but this one does. The B-side again, the Stop Start mix, the Thomas Bangalter mix of Roy Davis Jr.'s Rock Shock. Okay, now that I used to play all the time. I'll probably play this the most, and you can tell by my sleeve, like the sticker is all coming off. I need to try and find a better copy of this. And where did I buy this? This cost me $5.99 in. I'm not sure. It's just got France on it. I bought it from some shop. Maybe just scan that in and see what happens. But that was a good release. Definitely again for the B-side. Definitely for Thomas's Stop Start mix, without a doubt. Then the next one changed the world of music forever. And it's Stardust, Music Sounds Better With You. Now, can you imagine a world without this record? Everything about this record is just incredible. And even though it's just a disco loop, sample from a loop from an old disco record, a few beats thrown in, nothing stupendous when it comes to studio work, but it works. And I remember being in Ibiza for the first time. I was playing over there, and someone dropped this. I think it might have been. I can't remember the name. Remember the name, I'll tell you. She dropped it, and I was thinking, what the hell is this? What is this record? And it sounded like I said, I just knew straight away this is something to do with Daft Punk, without a doubt, because I was so obsessed with Daft Punk at the time. You get to know their sounds and instrumentation and the quality of their kind of mixing, all that. So I knew it had something to do with Daft Punk, and I just remember going up to the deck saying, "What is this?" And it was a white label, and someone said, "Oh, it's Daft Punk." Oh God, this is Daft Punk. So not realising it's Stardust. Music Sounds Better With You. Now with this record, this is a weird one, because of DJs who are like, yeah, phrasing, your records are phrased. Used to know the people that used to play this because it was a big track, and not actually understand what's going to really listen to it, because in this record, I think it's like an 8 or 16 bar phrase all the way through, But twice in the record, it drops down to a 2-bar break. So it kind of goes 15, 16, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, back into 1. So if you weren't aware of that, your mixes would be kind of almost like 2 bars out of phrase. And that made a big difference. So it's great kind of seeing the DJs kind of play this and wait for that 2-bar break and then drop that next track in. Yeah, so that's my little thing with this record. I listened it back to front. This was only a one-sided record as well. One-sided, because on the B-side it just had an etched. Love Might Bring Us Back Together, Music Sounds Better With You. Just etched on the other side. I'm not sure if you can see that. And that's how you know it's an original copy. I think I've got like 3 or 4 copies of this. Do I play it now? Probably not. Playing it for nostalgia? Probably. Does it have the same impact? Probably. I've never really, DJing out, I've never really thought I'm going to play Music Sounds Better With You. I'd probably play a new edit of it or something like that. You still get the response from it if you played it, because it is just one of those classic tracks that will never ever disappear. Yeah, Stardust, Music Sounds Better With You. Then the next one, because there was just this massive hype, it was the biggest track, it was just played everywhere. I'm not sure what number it got to in the UK charts, but I know it's quite high. But there was just this hue of like bootlegs going around. But they did release, this would have been release number 305. And it's a remix from Stardust. It came out as a double pack on Roulé. And there's some good mix on here, like Chateau Flight mix was great for listening to. But my favourite mix, the Paris mix, was the 2 DJ Sneak mixes. And the really bizarre thing is they put them on the, one on each vinyl. I don't understand why they didn't just put the 2 Sneaks on one, because then I just have to take this, because I don't really play this one. But the DJ Sneak mix is great, and more so the dub mix. Because again, it kind of strips it down just that little bit more. And Sneak was doing it back then. He was part of that kind of whole kind of French crew, that kind of jacking kind of house. So it totally made sense that DJ Sneak did a remix for this. But the dub mix of his mix of Stardust Music Sounds Better With You is the one. I remember getting this sent on promo, and it's just crazy. I remember playing it and people were going crazy. What is this? What mix is this? And I think at the time I didn't even know who it was. It was just a white label with Music Sounds Better With You remix. Nothing else. And it wasn't until it came out I realised, okay. The shame is I can't find that white label, and I'm sure that it's going to be worth loads now. I just can't find it. The next release on Roulé was Thomas Bangalter with Tracks on the Rocks too. Insane. Produced at Daft House in Paris, France. On this one, there were so many tracks on this one. I think there was 5 tracks on this, and every one of these I could play. Typical kind of loop disco, typical big beats, kind of cutting through the mix. The beats were always kind of up front, and the compression on the bass line, it just sounded immense on the club systems. But you could choose any one of these tracks, and it would absolutely work. And that's Thomas Bangalter's Tracks on Da Rocks too. I just love the way on Da Rocks. But yeah, that's a great record. I'd love to see more volumes of this. I'd love to see what he would do with this. So the next one, Romanthe. No, Romanthe was the guy who sang on. I assume it was the guy. It was Benjamin Diamond on vocals on that, so it wasn't Romanthe. I think Romanthe did One More Time. I'm not sure, but I know he did sing on a big track of Daft Punk's Romanthe, Hold On. Again, it was the dub mix. I really didn't like one of the versions. There's 3 tracks in here. You've got the classic vocal, R&B vocal. I wasn't too big a fan of vocal, like your verse, chorus, verse. I love the loop vocals, and there's only one mix on this one. Got a Grip dub. So out of all the Roulé releases, this is probably the one I've played the least. But I just wanted it in my collection. He is definitely iconic. He's done some great tracks. I didn't really quite feel this one. And at a push, I'll play the dub of this at a push. But I had to have it in the collection. Okay. The next one is Roulé 308. DJ Falcon. Love. I'm just a massive fan of DJ Falcon. And it's got Hello, My Name Is. And all the tracks on here are great. I absolutely love them. And I didn't know who DJ Falcon was until this came out. And then I kind of started following him. But I love that, DJ Falcon. What a name. And he hasn't really done a lot. I think he just released a couple of records. I think he did a couple of mixes. But he hasn't really done a lot. And I think he's done something quite recent. But I was a fan of this guy. Big time. Because of this record. Every track on here is just a killer. 4 tracks on there. There's even a track on there called Untitled. And the shame about it is none of these are available digitally. They only came out on vinyl, and I think a couple of the releases came out on CD. But you know, the music sounds better with the classic ones. But these are not available digitally. But you can find them on YouTube and things. So I'm glad to have this record. And then they released. There was a release that came out after this called Outrage. And I'm sure I had it. I remember it being a black sticker with the word outrage on it. And I can't find it. So I can't show you that one. But the next one that came out kind of followed the success of Music Sounds Better With You. And that was Together. And this was collaboration between Thomas and DJ Falcon. Brilliant. But around about the same time, I think there was a bootleg they did together of Call On Me, you know, the classic Call On Me that Eric Prydz done. There was a bootleg going way before Eric Prydz done his version, and then obviously Eric Prydz did his version, but it sounded very, very similar. But these guys were on it, and this track is another one. It's quite difficult to mix because it's so compressed, so you really have to be careful how you bring this track in. A lot of times you should drop the track out and just start filtering it in because the way it kind of dropped. And there wasn't that many mixes of this, to be honest. Again, it's one-sided, but there's nothing on it. There's no etching. It's just one-sided, which is a shame. But it's a great record. We all know that. And again, it was a massive, 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 massive hit in Ibiza, and that's Together. Again, I got this from Virgin for $7.49. That was the Virgin price. I'm not sure where that would have been. Was it the one at the bottom of Oxford Street? I can't remember, but I definitely bought that in London though. So that was kind of all the releases on Roulé. Now, they did have that sister label that I was talking about called Scratched in French. And they only had one release on that. Again, so the Roulé had the kind of wheel here, the gold, but the Scratchet, which is a sub-label of Roulé, was the dartboard in silver, and there was only one release, and that was from the Buffalo Bunch, who I absolutely adored. After releasing this, they started releasing a lot more things on Guy's label from Daft Punk. He had his own label, which I'm going to do a future video on. They started releasing more on that after this release, but this is incredible. I love this, and it's such a shame that they didn't do any more on this label because it was just a bit harder hitting on this one. A bit more techie, I would say. But the Buffalo beats, again, all about them beats. Just mixing them beats with any other track. Incredible. And also Roulé only released one album, which I got. And there's a few tracks on there. I mean, there's a few on here that were from some of these releases. So it was a soundtrack to a film called Irreversible. So Thomas did all the music for it. And you can see it's on Roulé Records, so the only album that ever came out on Roulé Records. And a lot of the tracks are from the 12 inches. So you've got things like Outrage, Outrun, Spinal Scratch, Ventura. But the rest of it is all kind of made for the film. It's okay, other than tracks I already know. But again, I think it was just something I wanted to add to my collection. And it came out, again, on double vinyl. I haven't really played it out because obviously being an album, you've got a lot more tracks on there. So it's not really that good for kind of playing out and getting that kind of full pump in the system, but great for kind of listening to. Just 2 separate sleeves, double album. I've never seen the film, but supposedly it was quite a controversial film. But that there is Roulé, and just to let you know, I've got this inside one of the records, and I'm sure in years to come be worth something. And also that Scratch A record, the Buffalo Club, that was release number 701. How random. But I did get this inside one of the records, and I'm sure like hardcore kind of followers of Daft Punk and Roulé would love this little poster. But that is the label showcase, and also just to let you know, Thomas wound the label up in December 2018. He liquidated the label. That was it. But he did come out with a really cool comment, which I was trying to find here. No, I can't find it, but he did have a comment. There's a classic comment that he came out with. The whole idea of Roulé was just to kind of release stuff that he liked, and not to bother with kind of trying to get it signed to kind of major labels, and it wasn't meant to be something that should be hanging around. You know, just wanted to come in, release these records, and then call it a day. And he's always said he'll never revisit that label. And I'm kind of glad, really, because the releases on there are so iconic, and Roulé has become so iconic. It'd be a shame now if he kind of restarted it, because it'll be very different. The sounds are very different now. You don't want to change the sound of Roulé, the sound that Roulé had. You know, when I talk to my DJ friends, I talk about Roulé, they know exactly what kind of sound I'm talking about. Say, hey, that record, it sounds like, you know, DJ Falcon on Roulé. Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. So I'm kind of glad, but 2018 it was gone. I actually thought it went a lot earlier than that, but actually 2018 was when he announced, right, the label's no more. So that comes to the end of my kind of label showcase, showing you some of my favourite record labels, showing you, you know, some of the records that I've got for this particular label, what they meant to me. There's loads more information out in there. I did find loads of information about each release, but I didn't want this to be a lecture. I just want you to, you know, from my perspective. But if you want to find out a little bit more about this label, Roulé Records, have a look. There's a great website out there who talk about each of the releases and where it came from. So definitely go and check that out. If you don't know the label, find these releases. Have a look on YouTube. Find them on vinyl. If you find them on vinyl, keep them. Okay. So that is Roulé Records and RPMbassy. And my name is John Taylor, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much.